So good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending this virtual open house for snow control and street sweeping. My name is Marielle Higry, and I'm a consultant assisting the city with engagement for this project, and I will be your moderator today. The purpose of this virtual open house is to learn more about the service level change options and ask questions to the project team. The virtual open house will also equip you to share further feedback in the Get Involved Lethbridge site after the presentation. We're really interested in hearing from you and encourage you to ask questions using the chat function. Just a reminder that the team will be focusing on questions related to the service options. And because this is a group session, we won't be discussing particular properties. If you would like to share any personal feedback, please answer the survey. We will be sharing the link to the survey during the presentation today. Before we get started, I have some housekeeping items and ground rules to share with you. So we want to maintain a respectful and safe space for all. With that in mind, please use respectful language when submitting your questions. We also want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable participating and submitting those questions. So we ask you to be open to others' ideas and strive to be constructive if you're providing comments. We also want to remind you that we are recording this presentation to be shared later on the website. So please do not share any sensitive information about yourself or say anything that you do not want to have in the public domain. We will also be answering questions after the presentation, but again, you can submit them at any point through the chat function. So my next piece, I would like to introduce our presenters tonight. So we have Julianne Rock and Darwin Jewell from the Transportation Operation team. And we also have in the background providing support, Megan Williams and Rian Vilka. So with that, I will hand it over to Julianne to get us going with the presentation.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. And on the screen, you should now see our agenda. So we already did the introductions to the city team and talked about the objective of the meeting. For the first 15 minutes, we'll cover the snow and ice control project background, policy framework, current service level, and then the service level options. And after that, we'll move into the sweeping program, project background, current service level options, current service level, and then service level options. We'll talk briefly about timelines, and then around 7:35, we hope to move on to the questions and answer period. Okay, so snow and ice control. As you might have seen on our webpage, the project kind of came to life with the recommendations from the KPMG report. In 2019, the city hired KPMG, and KPMG provided in 2020 the following recommendations. Recommendation 1, the city should consider further analysis into clearing methodologies and associated service levels as prioritizing the removal of snow instead of clearing coverage and response time appears to differ from the practices seen in other cities. This basically means that the city focuses a lot of resources on snow removal and not as much on plowing as seen in other municipalities. The second recommendation from the KPMG report was that we should consider commissioning a winter maintenance program review, including a review of leading practices and technologies used in other cities, a study of existing service levels, thresholds, route methodologies, and cost effectiveness. So we did all this in preparation of a presentation to council in March 2021 and provided some service level options for snow and ice control and also for sweeping. And council directed administration at that time to go back and develop a public engagement process to review some of these service level options according to the public engagement policy that the city has. So that's what we're doing right now as part of this project, the engagement. Today, the city of Lethbridge focuses the scope of the snow and ice control program related to our snow and ice control policy. And in there, it stated that we have to minimize the economic loss to the community, reduce the inconvenience and hazards of winter drive conditions for motorists and pedestrians, and facilitate the operation of transit and emergency service vehicles. The city also has to create acceptable winter driving conditions for vehicles that are properly equipped for winter driving and are operated in a manner consistent with good winter driving habits. So that's kind of our framework stated in the snow and ice control policy for our program. And today, the scope of the city services includes that we maintain properties, roads, pathways, and sidewalks. Transportation alone takes care of 580 kilometers of road network and 220 kilometers of lanes. The Parks Department, in addition, has around 300 kilometers of pathways that are taken care of. All of this for the snow and ice control portion is fully funded by taxation. Transportation and Parks Department have together a $4.55 million budget for the snow and ice control, and there is a backstop to the municipal revenue stabilization reserve. That basically means if we have a really, really bad winter with lots of storms and heavy snowfall, and we need additional resources, we can get permission to fund those resources through the municipal revenue stabilization reserve. During winter operation, our crews basically have to be available from November 1st till April 30th, 24 hours, 7 days a week. We follow a priority route system for plowing and sanding, and snow removal we also provide on the priority route system, but only if snow accumulation impedes vehicle passage. So this picture up here is a traditional snow plow with a sender in the back that we use and that you see quite often in the community. And down here, this is a picture of our snow removal operation where we have a snow blower attached to a loader and blow snow in trucks that then get trucked away. And the berms are formed with a grader in the middle of the road, while plowing normally happens to be plowed to the side of the road. Also part of this project is that we want to explore a little bit the snow routes that we today operate and the option to declare them more often and enforce them to allow more efficient snow clearing. When we look at the service level options that are for discussion for snow and ice control, option 1 is the status quo. That just means very similar to what I just showcased, that our server level would be maintained. We would focus on the plowing of arterial roads and some major collectors, and plowing on residential roads would only happen on an as-needed service request basis. The sanding of intersections, bends, and hills on major residential roads would happen like today, like we are doing today. And snow removal would focus on downtown areas around the hospital and mainly along bus routes and around school zones. And snow removal only happens during winter events when snow berms really impede traffic and the snow has to be moved away. However, we do have a drift response program, and that is performed on an as-needed basis as service requests arise. So the benefits of the status quo are that it's status quo. Everybody knows what to expect for the service level. There is limited impact for the residents for their home snow management and accessibility. And there is also limited impact for school and busing operations. The drawbacks are that it is status quo and that we've received a lot of feedback that residents would like to see more service level regarding plowing. And another drawback is that this normal removal operation can become really, really costly for the city and therefore for the taxpayers. And just for the streets and roads part of our snow removal, the current budget is 3.88 million. Option 2, that means we are proposing to do more residential plowing and less snow removal. So we are shifting resources. The focus here would be to do plowing on arterials, selected collector roads, bus routes, and major residential roads, and continue sanding of intersection bands and hills. Snow removal, however, would only focus on downtown areas around the hospital and around schools. Direct response would happen on a service request basis as an option 1. Some of the benefits that we've identified are that now loose snow would be pushed away from the driving lanes. Especially that's important during less significant snow events. So it would definitely improve the traffic flow and the roads would be passable faster. In addition to that, residents would likely perceive that we are doing more winter maintenance activities. Some of the drawbacks are that now windrows can form in front of residential driveways and snow can get onto the sidewalks when we plow. They might be plowed in cars, parked cars, and therefore potential loss of parking space also when we plow into the parking lanes. There might be property damage when cars are getting plowed in and that can cause claims, and then we need resources to investigate those claims. Bus stops could be plowed in and we need additional resources to remove the snow for those areas. And also we could be way faster with the plowing now, and those complementary services like bus stop clearance or crosswalk clearance would likely be lagging behind. Then ice on the road, when the berms on the sides of the roads can melt, and then overnight it can freeze again and plug catch basins and form ice on the road surface. And because this is a significant change of service level, there would be likely a liability impact for the city. So again, we believe that because we are just reallocating resources, that it should be cost neutral, 3.8 million, because in an average year, we would need more resources for plowing, but less for snow removal. And during extreme winter events, we could actually have cost savings because we do plowing, which is faster, and less snow removal in option 2 here. Option 3 is very similar to option 2. It just means that we do lots of residential plowing and snow removal only in the downtown and hospital area. And then we now would even propose plowing in school zones. Very similar to option 2, we would focus the plowing on arterial selected collector roads, bus roads, and major residential roads. We would also plow around school zones and continue the sanding of intersections, bends, and hills. As I said, snow removal would only be in downtown and around the hospital. And some of the benefits that we can see in this option is, again, that loose snow would be pushed away from the driving lanes. There would be less snow removal and resources needed. Roads would be passable faster, and residents would perceive that we do more winter maintenance activities. Some of the drawbacks are that windrows, again, in this option would form in front of residential driveways, could impact some sidewalks and causing accessibility issues. We could have plowed in cars, then potential property damage and claims regarding that. Bus stops would be plowed in. Our complementary services like crosswalk and bus stop clearing should be completed slower than the plowing. And especially for this option, we have to point out that school areas would be plowed in with potentially berms in front of the curb. And kids might be playing in those piles now, and there would likely be parking and access challenges, as well as school bus parking impacts. Again, ice can form when the berms melt and then freeze at night and plug catch basins. And the sustainability impact would be the same as for option 2. This one, again, we believe it's cost neutral, but in a very, very extreme winter, there would be more cost savings because we would do just plowing and way less snow removal than we traditionally do. I want just to showcase some of these options. I have selected some areas that are also in our interactive map that you can access through getinvolvedlethbridge.ca. And down there in light blue here, I have the link that leads you directly to the story map that I have the following screenshots from. So for example, when we look at Chinook Regional Hospital, nothing really will change because the hospital is one of our priority items. And areas in option 1, 2, and 3, it would continue to be priority 1 snow removal and receive the same kind of service. For example, for Gilbert Patterson School, things would look a little bit different. Today, it is around the school area here, we have priority 3 snow removal. For option 2, that would already change because we are cutting so much on the snow removal routes that now all school zones would become priority 2 snow removal, which you can see here, the light blue roads. And this road in front of Gilbert Patterson would actually become a priority 3 plowing route. For option 3, as I mentioned, school zones would now become just plowing routes. We would just plow along schools and conduct no snow removal any longer. And for Gilbert Patterson, that would look like this right here in the front of the school, where we drive plow trucks down the road and plow to the right into the parking lane, or plow here onto the boulevard space that's existing in front of the school. Then we also have one of the examples on our webpage is Jerry Potts Boulevard and Red Crow Boulevard. So that is an interesting area because there would be lots of changes. Today we have Jerry Potts and Red Crow as a priority 2 or 3 snow removal, and in option 2 that would change to priority 2 and 3 plowing, here shown in dark blue and green, and only the small area in front of the school here would continue to be a snow removal route. And for option 3, again, it would be priority 2 and 3 plowing, and even the school area would be included in the plowing route. And to explain a little bit better the actually resource impacts for that example, I have that written down here that snow removal resources today for this area with Jerry Potts and Red Crow would be priority 2 and 3. For that, we need 1 grader, 1 loader with a snow blower, 2 blocker trucks to close off the roads and keep our staff and equipment safe. Then we approximately would need 10 contractor trucks that haul the snow now. And at the end of the day, when all the snow is hauled away, we would send a sanding truck to sand the road surface. Approximately on average, this kind of operation would take 20 hours to remove all the snow in that area. And based on our experience, that probably happens only every 5 years or as required. Again, it very much depends on how much snowfall we get. The same area for option 2 or 3, the plowing resources to make this a priority 2 or 3 plowing route would basically mean that we have 2 snow plows with sanders. That would take us only 3 hours to plow those roads, and we would likely do that 10 times a year, considering the average snow year or weather events. Just brief this slide regarding snow routes. So today, in the event of abnormal or extreme weather, when roads need to be plowed, the city can declare a snow event that warrants parking bans along snow routes. We seldom declare snow rights right now even though it would make it way easier and more efficient and effective for our equipment to move around along those roads when we have to plow or remove snow. And it also prevents vehicles from being plowed in if we declare snow routes. So the options that are up for discussions are to basically leave it as a status quo, where we very rarely declare snow routes, or really limit enforcement during major weather events. The other option up for discussion is that we don't have any snow route enforcement any longer. That basically means there's no ticketing, but it might increase the cost for the city because now we have even more hazards when we move in with our equipment along those roads. Or the other option is to increase enforcement along snow roads. That means we can actively ticket when we declare snow routes, and hopefully that will help us to create more efficient snow and ice control operations. Okay, let's move on to street sweeping. Street sweeping, again, same project background. KPMG's results were published in 2020, and they provided the following recommendation for our street sweeping program. The city should evaluate alternative street sweeping options and consider whether the city should continue its current spring and fall sweeping schedule. That was what KPMG provided, and then in March 2021, administration presented a couple of service level options for the street sweeping and got direction to consult with the public about those. Today, the purpose of the current program is to keep our roads safe and reduce the environmental impact of storm runoff, as well as to contribute to a beautiful city. The whole sweeping program is funded by taxation. It costs today $1.3 million. And that means we already experienced a reduction in funding by 18% or $285,000 for our 2021 and 2022 budget. So the $1.3 million is our 2022 budget. Weather dependent, we conduct the sweeping in the winter, spring, summer, and fall. For sweeping, it's important that the roads are dry, so we definitely can't do this when there is water or snow and ice on the road. Today, our key program areas are the winter sweeping, where we try to, when everything dries up, and it's nice during Chinook weather, we definitely try to sweep priority 1 and 2 standing routes just to remove some of the debris and create less hazards on those important roads. And then we also do a major spring night sweeping, where we try to focus on all our major standing routes to get those cleaned up in the spring. And then we have our residential spring sweeping program, where we inform all residents about when sweeping happens in the neighborhood. Night summer sweeping program that focuses on the industrial park in downtown and again the major roads. And then a fall sweeping program that we focus on the areas of town where a lot of mature trees are located. So we segregated the service level options that are up for discussion into options on how to adjust the residential spring sweeping, our main big program. So basically, option 1 is that we could maintain current practices, so that's status quo, and that part of the the sweeping program costs $600,000. The other option is so option 1, status quo, because of the recent budget cuts. That might mean that in some years when there's lots of debris on the road that we can only do 2/3 of the city, because for example in 2021, in the spring of 2021, we already missed to sweep Fleetwood, Tudor, and Scenic Heights. I have that here on the map as little red circles. And Park Royal was only swept because there were a lot of major potholes in the area, and we swept it during the night sweeping and sent repair crews in the night to that area. So again, status quo means that not everything might even get swept in an average year, and if there's lots of debris on the road, it might even impact our resources more. Option 2 is that we focus on priority 1 to 3 roads. This is where sand was applied during the winter operation, and reduce sweeping frequency in residential roads even more to only 2/3 of them swept per year. So this would mean more resources are available for other services and definitely reduce the cleanliness and environmental benefits that are associated with sweeping. Option 3 is that we rotate different areas of the city and only sweep every other year, like north, south, and west. Again, we would save money and resources, and but the cleanliness of the city would be reduced and the environmental benefits. And option 4 is to increase the frequency of the sweeping again, so that residential neighborhoods definitely are guaranteed to get swept once a year. That a benefit is for that enhance cleanliness and environmental benefits, and but it also means that we would need more resources and probably additional money for our budgets. The residential forest sweeping is a different, smaller part of our program. As I mentioned, we focus on areas around city parks and neighborhoods with mature trees. That includes, for example, London Road, Upper East Side, Glendale Parkside, Victoria Park, and Westminster. So option 1 is maintain current practices, status quo, same $120,000. Then another option is to reduce the frequency of sweeping, and that would allow more resources to be available for other services, but would definitely reduce the cleanliness and environmental benefits for the city. And option 3 is that we could enhance our fall sweeping program with more communication and enforcement, because today we don't put up any signs in the neighborhoods. There is no notification via our Recollect apps or city web pages possible, and so enhanced communication would likely need more resources for signage and communication development, and we would need to increase our budgets. Or another option is to just discontinue the fall sweeping, and then we allocate resources to other areas. But I just wanted to know that that doesn't mean that we now save $120,000. No, we would still have to pay for our equipment. So the savings, we think, are approximately only $50,000 for this option. And the environmental impacts would be quite significant, because a lot of fall debris would end up in the storm system. The last option here is adjustments to our summer sweeping program, where we focus the sweeping onto downtown, the industrial area, and arterial roads. So if we maintain the current practices, that program had a budget reduction of $150,000. Basically, it means we have swept in 2021 less arterial roads, the industrial area, and downtown. So that would be status quo. We could reduce the frequency of sweeping even more in those areas. And again, that would have a budget impact, but also reduce cleanliness and environmental benefits, and more resources would be available for other services. Or we could increase the frequency of the road sweeping in the industrial park, downtown, and along arterial roads to enhance cleanliness, and but that means that less resources are available for other services and cost might increase. So those are the 3 major program options for the sweeping, and then segregated them the different options of adjustment. I just want to talk briefly about next steps. So in December 2021, we were seeking with the same kind of information feedback from key stakeholders for the snow and ice control service level adjustments. Invited were representatives from the hospitals, from the school boards, downtown, the school busing agency, Lethbridge Transit, to provide feedback on our snow and ice control options, because we believe that would impact the operation. Right now, we are in the phase of the public engagement, so I get involved last page and through tonight's session. And then all the results from all this engagement will be summarized in a report by Arterial, our consultant, and we'll present that in the spring of this year to council, and they can take that into consideration when they discuss a potential service level adjustment. And if council decides to make any adjustments, we will implement those at the earliest in the winter of 2022-2023. Okay, I'm almost right on time, 7:32, and we can move into the question and answer period.